Are you ever allowed to tell a lie? Is it ever okay? No. An outright lie is always wrong. An outright lie, meaning that you communicate to another person with the intention of deceiving him, is always sinful. Even a venial sin. You could not even tell a venial sin deliberately for the sake of saving your own life. You just couldn't do it. Now, there is something called a broad mental reservation, which might be a little confusing at first, but I think you'll see the point that it's not actually a lie. We read about this in the moral theology books. There is strict mental reservation, which is an out-and-out lie. A strict mental reservation is just saying something that is just outright false for the purpose of deceiving another person. But a broad mental reservation is not that. And a broad mental reservation can be justified. This is what constitutes a broad mental reservation. If someone wants information that that person has no right to, and should know reasonably, the person has no right to, you have no obligation to give them the information. You might have an obligation not to give them the information. For example, a doctor has a professional secrecy. We talk about the HIPAA regulations now, the HIPAA regulations that are in force in medicine, where even nurses on phones cannot reveal, or even in hospitals, reveal to priests who come to see the sick what their conditions are, how grave, or what danger they're in. They share that information with the immediate relatives, and the relatives have to give that information. But the nursing and the medical staff is not necessarily permitted to give that information, even to priests who need to know for the good of the soul. It's just the rules, And being called to the bedside of someone who is ill, possibly dying. And I will find when I ask the nursing clientele, well, what condition are they in? Are they dying? And so on. They will often say, well, I can't reveal that. I can't share that information with you. And I respect that because I understand there are legal restraints on them. And sometimes I'll ask them, well, you're the nurse in charge. You're going to see this person tomorrow and so on. Would you be surprised if you came in tomorrow and found out that they'd passed away overnight? Sometimes they feel free to express that, well, I'd be surprised, or no, I wouldn't be surprised to find that they had passed away. And sometimes that tells me enough what I need to know. There's a professional secrecy there that they cannot tell you, unfortunately, even with the priest, but they've got someone on the phone, they don't know who it is. I understand that. But it applies not only to medicine, it applies to law too. I mean, the lawyers have a professional client-attorney privilege there. By law, they have that. And what the client tells the attorney is something that the attorney is bound by law to maintain secrecy. If someone were to come up to the lawyer and say, did so-and-so, did your client tell you that he did this or said that? The person who approached the lawyer should know the lawyer cannot answer the question, will not answer the question, must not answer the question. So the lawyer is actually free to say no, or even deny knowing, or deny that the subject ever came up, even though the subject came up and the lawyer knows very well the answer and what the client said. The individual who's accosting him for information has no right to the information and has no right to ask for the information. And any reasonable, intelligent person should know that. So the lawyer is actually not lying. He's giving actually a professional non-answer. The same with the priest. The priest, above all, has an obligation of secrecy. It's called the seal of confession. If somebody were to come up to a priest and ask him, did my wife, my son, my brother, my client, my employer, my employee, did they confess this to you? The priest has an obligation, not only under pain of mortal sin, but under pain of automatic excommunication, most especially reserved to the Holy See itself, not to reveal anything that was told him for the sake of sacramental absolution from sin. He would have to die. If necessary, he'd have to die 1,000 deaths rather than betray that confidence. And everybody knows that, or should. And so if a priest were accosted by someone demanding to know, and there have been priests who actually died rather than betrayed the seal of confession, the priest would have to give an answer that would be a complete non-answer. And so his non-answer is simply, I have no idea. I don't know what you're talking about. This also, by the way, even begs the question of whether the priest even knows who was going to confession. And the priest, again, he's not paying attention to who's going to confession. He's not analyzing the voices or anything like that. That's not the point there. The point is to make the sins go away. So these are broad mental reservations insofar as they are giving non-answers that any reasonable, intelligent, sensible person would know are simply non-answers that they have no right to ask, and the priest has an obligation not to tell. The doctor, the lawyer, whoever has the professional information is bound to maintain secret. Now, what about those so-called little white lies? What about the phone ringing? Little Johnny answers the phone, and the voice is there. It says, "Is your mommy home?" Mommy says, "Tell him I'm not home." So they come back to the phone and say, "Mommy's not home. Mommy says she's not home." Something to that effect. Obviously, if the child says, "Mommy says she's not home," that's not a good cover. If the child says, "Mommy's not home," that's bad too, because it indicates to some anonymous caller that a parent is not there. But we're not concerned about that. That's not the issue here. The issue is mommy just told the child to go tell the person on the phone something that's not true. And mommy has told the child, never lie, don't lie, tell the truth. But mommy now tells the child, tell them I'm not home. The child knows very well mommy's home. And the child knows very well that what he's saying is not true. So the child can be scandalized by that. And a parent has to be very careful about what he or she instructs the child to say. Because the parent does not want to say anything that would contradict what the parent is trying to teach the child about being truthful. But the question is here, would it be wrong, for example, for someone to make an excuse why I can't talk to you? I'm busy right now, or I've got this or that. Well, in polite company, that's a put-off. And that's basically saying, I can't talk to you right now. I don't want to talk to you now. I have no obligation to talk to you right now. And you might even say, you have a lot of nerve in calling me right now, a cold call, because you're disturbing me. And you have no right to my time. My time is dedicated to something else. People who make calls like that, they know, they understand that they do not have a strict right to your time just because they call you and get you on the other end of the phone. So again, their reasonable understanding of your answer is, I don't want to talk to you. Okay, they're just trying to be polite, make an excuse, but it really is a matter of like a non-answer. I've got to go. So they need to reasonably express they're okay with that, and they shouldn't be doing that in the first place if they don't already understand that. So technically speaking, I think it would also fall into the realm of a broad mental reservation, just because any reasonable person would understand. They're out of the blue demanding the time of someone's life who really has something better to do with that time and has no obligation to give them that time and attention. What about someone coming to the door? And let's say the man with the violin case and the dark glasses comes to the door and says they want to see your dad because he owes the money. And you think, oh dear, this could be dangerous. And you say, my daddy's not here, but he's hiding behind the door. Well, again, does the person who's standing at the door have a reasonable right to know where daddy is? And the answer is no, if he intends to do harm to him. So again, this would not be considered an out-and-out lie. It would be considered, again, a broad mental reservation because the person who's demanding the information has no right to it. And you have an obligation, on the other hand, to protect your father, your child, whatever. And any reasonable person would understand that. You're at dinner at somebody's home, and they served you something less than appetizing. And they ask you, oh, how did you like that? Would you like some more? What do you say? Do you say, that was the most horrible food I ever tasted in my life? Of course you can't say that. They know you can't say that. Could you say, well, it's delicious, thank you, but I'm full? And neither one of those is true. It's not delicious and you're not full. But of course, in asking you this question, they understand the social graces absolutely forbid you to say that was horrible. And they don't expect you to say that, and they wouldn't want you to say that even if it were true. So again, it's the social graces that move them to ask you, and the social graces that provide a non-answer. Are you full? You're full of that. Yes, you're full of as much of that as you want. That could be the absolute truth. The point being that in terms of social graces, there are non-answers that do not constitute technically lies because of the common understanding among the people involved that constitute simply living together in society and having social graces and avoiding hurting each other's feelings. And everybody with any lick of sense understands that. So in any case, be very careful though. There are two caveats about this. It's all too easy to pass from being ready to make excuses to begin to cross over into lies, just out and out lies of convenience. So you have to be very careful not to do that. Children especially have to be very, very careful not to resort to broad mental reservations with their parents. And I mentioned not giving a non-answer to someone who's wanting information that you might find inconvenient. Children can never invoke broad mental reservations against their parents. Why? Because parents always have the right to know. Parents have the need and the obligation to know the truth. They cannot invoke the idea of a broad mental reservation to deceive you because you have no right to know. You've got a right to know, and they have an obligation to tell you.